Hi, my name is Rick Adams and I'm the owner and senior consultant at practicalcsm.com. As you may know, I have recently written a book titled Practical Customer Success Management, a best practice framework for rapid generation of customer success. And this book is based almost entirely on something else that I wrote first, which is the Practical CSM framework. My company will also be launching our Certified CSM Professional training and certification program this summer, and this too is also based upon my Practical CSM framework. So, what's so valuable and important about a framework? The idea of a framework is to provide a structure for professionals within a particular industry or job role that enables those professionals to perform their tasks in a way that maximizes their productivity whilst at the same time increasing both the quality and the consistency of their output. Frameworks are really helpful because the structure they provide enables the professionals who use them to follow best practices without having to reinvent the wheel each time they come across a particular situation, and with the reassurance that the guidance the framework provides them with ensures they perform the right steps in the right order and to a consistently high quality standard. The secret to a good framework is to ensure that it provides sufficient detail to be useful, yet not so much detail that it becomes cumbersome and difficult to use, and also to allow the users of that framework the freedom to customize it by amending it and adding new parts to it in order to tailor it to meet their own unique situational requirements. And this is something that the Practical CSM framework does well. I created the Practical CSM framework because I saw what I believed to be, and indeed still believe to be, what you might describe as a best practices gap currently in the customer success profession. Obviously, the customer success profession is relatively new compared to most professions, and it's still growing and maturing. At its current stage, I think we're generally clear that as an overall concept, customer success management brings a lot of value to the table for both customers and suppliers, certainly of any complex solution, and potentially of pretty much anything at all. There are also some great software systems that are being developed to help CSMs capture data about customer health and determine which customers might need more attention. What I do not see very much of, though, is definitions for what the CSM should actually do, and then equally important, how they should go about doing those things. And that is exactly what the Practical CSM framework sets out to provide. Here is the Practical CSM framework, and as you can see, it's divided into 7 phases, and those in turn are grouped into 3 major stages. The phases and stages follow the typical phases and stages of the customer's journey from the point where they've purchased but not yet implemented the CSM's company's products or services through to outcome attainment and even beyond. Let's briefly review each of the 3 major stages. Stage A is the initial stage, and this contains the first 2 phases, namely phase 1, preparation, and phase 2, commitment. The early phases of an engagement are about getting things ready, primarily getting oneself ready as the CSM to be useful and relevant in the context of the customer's needs and desires, and getting to know the customer's key stakeholders, as well as reaching an agreement on the types of ways the CSM will be able to help the customer with their journey towards value realization. Stage B is the user readiness stage, and this is all about helping the customer prepare their users to be able to fully adopt and use the solution they've purchased. It includes both the initial onboarding of products and services and then moves into full-scale adoption, which in turn readies the customer to commence solution utilization. Stage B contains 3 phases, namely Phase 3 onboarding, Phase 4 adoption planning, and Phase 5 adoption implementation. Stage C is the ongoing stage. This final stage is ongoing in the sense that it continues on into the future for as long as the customer continues to use the solution. This stage takes over as soon as adoption is completed and ensures that maximum value is continually generated, measured, and reported on. At intervals during this stage, the CSM will take stock of the engagement and determine what has gone well, what could have gone better, and what has been learned for future engagements. In Stage C, the remaining two phases of the framework can be found, which are Phase 6, Value Realization, and Phase 7, Engagement Evaluation. It's handy to have everything stored or at least referenced in one place so that it can be managed more easily and to make sure it is available when needed. And the final component of the Practical CSM framework is the central repository. The concept behind the central repository is to ensure there is a place to store all information from each of the phases in a central location so that anyone who needs to access the information at any stage within the engagement can do so. Ultimately, new content created and stored within this central repository can also be templated for reuse in future engagements, if this seems like a good idea. The Practical CSM framework is depicted as a wheel or cycle rather than as a linear progression. This has been done deliberately in order to illustrate the concept of cyclical work, although in fact there are both linear and cyclical patterns that occur in most customer engagements. In a typical customer engagement, there is a linear progression from initial meetings through to reporting on end results, as described earlier. This is a fairly obvious progression since most things have a beginning, middle and end to them. However, in addition to this progress from beginning to end, it's important for CSMs to recognise that the reality of their progression is likely to be more complicated than that. Typically, the CSM will have to revisit previous phases or even stages and or jump ahead to future phases or stages in order to get the job done. Sometimes this is due to outside pressures such as deadlines or budgets. At other times, it's simply a product of learning on the job and uncovering new needs or requirements that need to be dealt with, but which were not known about at the start. The Practical CSM framework cycle is therefore illustrative of the need of the CSM to be flexible in their approach and willing to jump forwards and backwards through the phases as necessary, whilst at all times maintaining an overall progression forwards in order to ensure the engagement's desired outcomes are attained. Let's very briefly overview what happens in each of the 7 phases that are contained within the Practical CSM framework. Before meeting the customer, and indeed before performing any activity related to a new customer engagement, the CSM should engage in some basic preparation to get themselves ready for the engagement and to ensure they hit the ground running in terms of their usefulness to the customer. The preparation phase deals with what the CSM should do at this initial stage. It's essential that both the CSM and the customer share the same understanding both about what needs to be done in order for the customer to realise the value they need to see from the initiative and what role the CSM will play in helping that value realisation to occur. It is also important for the CSM to meet key customer stakeholders and start to develop meaningful trust relationships with them. Additionally, it's also useful for the CSM to validate some of the information that was learned during Phase 1 preparation that was an assumption rather than a known fact, and to agree on timings for and pace of the engagement to best suit the customer's needs. Onboarding is the process of getting the customer started with a new product, service or solution, with the idea being to help customers start attaining measurable value from their purchase as quickly as possible and to reduce customer frustration around lack of information and or support to get them going. The onboarding phase explains what the CSM needs to do to manage this onboarding process as effectively as possible. This is the process of researching and analysing customer information relating to who will be using the solution and how they will be using it. This phase explains how to create a high-level adoption roadmap for sign-off from senior sponsors and a detailed adoption project plan to be followed during the adoption implementation phase. The adoption implementation phase explains the role of the CSM in helping the customer to carry out the planned adoption in a smooth and orderly fashion. The value realization phase takes over directly after adoption has been completed. Once users are using the new functionality that they've been provided with, the value being created needs to be measured and tracked, and adjustments may need to be made from time to time to ensure progress towards outcomes continues to be made. Every time a CSM engages with a customer, the CSM gains in experience. This experience, together with any resources that were created for the customer that could be templated and reused in future customer engagements, needs to be evaluated and recorded. Lessons can be learned from every engagement to help become better CSMs in the future. The Practical CSM framework can be customized to meet your company's CS strategy, its products and services, and the needs of your customers. It was deliberately designed to be a generic tool that could be used as it is or could be adapted. And CSMs are welcome to use this generic framework as a start point for creating their own framework, making whatever changes and adjustments they need to tailor it to meet their own company's and customers' unique requirements. If you're interested to learn more about the Practical CSM framework and how to use it to generate value for your customers and your own company, you can purchase my book, Practical Customer Success Management, a best practice framework for rapid generation of customer success, which is available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, and also direct from the publisher Taylor & Francis, which in fact seems to offer the cheapest price and includes postage to most locations worldwide. You can also purchase my company's Certified CSM Professional online self-study training and certification program, which incorporates the book as its training manual, along with 10 modules worth of videos, quizzes and case study based exercises, as well as a final exam to certify as a practicalcsm.com Certified CSM Professional. Finally, if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter, you will automatically receive a link to download a 22-page briefing document on the Practical CSM framework in PDF format, which covers the same information that we've covered in this video and is yours to keep and use as you wish. Visit our website at www.practicalcsm.com to subscribe to our newsletter to learn more about the Practical CSM framework and to find out information about our book, Practical Customer Success Management, and our CCSMP training program.